Hey guys, Brent Johny, and welcome to another episode of the Share, Inspire, Create show. And in this show, we're going to talk all about long exposure photography.
Awesome, man. I can't wait. I love long exposure photography. And find out my epic fail 10-stop story. Oh man, I'm still heartbroken.
Yeah, and what we're going to do is we're going to share some inspirational images with you that Johnny and I photographed.
And then we're going to show you how we did it. Enjoy the show, guys.
The SIC Show. Share, Inspire, Create.com. Share.
Okay, so Johnny, share your long exposure failure with us.
Oh, bro, you have no idea. Guys, what I have in my hand here is a Lee 10-stop filter, and it is broken. See?
Oh, man.
And it's glass, $200 Australian for this little puppy. Do you know how long I waited on a list to get this filter?
How long?
Man, it was seriously 12 months. There's one place you can get it in Sydney, and I was on a list for 12 months. They were out of stock.
Yeah.
I just could not get one anywhere I went.
Yeah.
So I've had it for about 12 months. And as you can see, it's broken. So I actually don't use it all that often. Yeah, you have a look, man.
I'll put it in front of my shirt.
Yeah, so you can see it. It's totally stuffed. And Lee make brilliant filters. I absolutely love their filters. And as you can see, Brent's got his here on the table as well. We're big fans of Lee filters. By the way, when we talk about products like this, we are we're not affiliated with these products or camera brands or anything like that at all. That'd be a good thing to say up front, because we're not.
We just use them.
Yeah, we just promote the gear that we use and love. And obviously, I'm not paid by Apple, but I love my MacBook.
You should be paid by Apple.
Oh, Apple. Anyway, back to the filter. Okay. Anyway, so basically, guys, the story is I went to this awesome waterfall for work. And it was a bright day. Well, when I say it was a bright day, it was one of those days, Brent, where there's puffy clouds, broken clouds, and like every 5 or 10 minutes, it would go behind the sun. A cloud would block the sun, and you get a chance to shoot a waterfall. You know, because when you're in the forest or shooting waterfalls, you want either, early morning, late at night, or totally overcast. Yeah. Basically, that's the best time to shoot. You don't want them bright highlights and harsh shadows. Basically, we don't like that. Anyway, so it was one of those.
You want even light on the waterfall.
You want even light. There it is. He knows what I'm talking about. Anyway, and so what happened? I went there and I walked into this waterfall about half an hour. It wasn't too bad. Half an hour I can handle. Anyway, got down there and went to pull out my 10-stop because I thought I want to shoot this waterfall with an epic long exposure. I want to take 10 stops of light and just remove it from the ambient light and just shoot a long exposure on this thing, 30 seconds or something like that. And I pulled my filter out and she's broken. So the tip here, guys, is with your gear, you need to always check it before you get on location, before you leave home, because, I use my camera gear that often at work, just about every other day. And I just took it for granted that my kit was all working in order. And when I got there, she's not all good.
So do you have a pouch to carry it in, something like that?
I do have a little pouch, but the problem is I had my filters in a little side bag. And it's not that well protected. So what's happened when I've laid my bag over, it's obviously put pressure on the filter and just snapped it. So the tip here, guys, is check your gear before you get on location. And I think what I'm actually going to do, I might try one of the polycarbonate filters next. So they're a little bit cheaper. They can handle a bit more of Johnny pressure, Johnny love. And I might save myself a bit of money next time I break one. So there it is, guys.
Great.
Check your gear before you go.
Good stuff. Well, thanks, Johnny, for that.
Awesome.
Inspire.
All right, buddy. What have you got to inspire us this week?
All right, guys. So this image is one that I won an award for a few years ago, and it's a long exposure image. It's a color image. I normally shoot long exposure black and white, but this is a color one. And there's something else in this image that you might not see. So have a look at it. It looks like a beautiful landscape image with a log in the foreground, and the clouds are moving in the background, and I've got milky water. Do you notice the model on the log? Have a close look. So what I did here was I actually submitted this image into the portrait category in our Australian ARPP annual awards, basically the Australian Professional Photography Awards. And when it came up and the judges were judging it, they were like, hold on, this is the portrait category and I'm looking at a landscape. And then they saw the model, who I actually had body painted, to blend into the log, and that's basically why I think I got a silver or something. I can't remember, a few years ago. It doesn't mean too much to me anymore. Awards, it's like
nah, it's just another day.
Yeah, I know.
I'd rather be here creating a SIC show.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But okay, so how did I create this image? I photographed 2 exposures or a number of exposures. One long exposure with my 10-stop neutral density filter, this one over here. On my
and it's not cracked?
No.
The non-cracked version? Yeah, that's the perfect one to have.
Obviously use a tripod, and it's about a 30-second, or I think it may even gone to 2-minute exposure to get the clouds and the movement. And then I photographed a faster shutter speed image with the model, because she's breathing and she obviously can't stand still for 30 seconds. So she's blurred, and I photographed a couple with the exact same position on my lens and my tripod, and then I blended them together to create this image.
Awesome, man. It's you know what? I love the color, but I reckon that in black and white would also be.
Yes.
I would love it. Yeah, it'd hide her even that little bit more, and yeah, I love it, mate. It's awesome. So much work has gone into creating that. You know, it's easy for us landscape photographers to rock up. It's just us, and we get on site and do our thing. But the fact that you brought a model along, and looks like she's been fully body painted as well to match the log, like. You know, so much effort just to get that one image done, and awesome,
and basically, there's 3 artists there. There's the photographer, as an artist, you know, having your vision and finding the scene and the actual angle that you want to photograph it. There's the body painter. She's an artist to paint the model, and the model's an artist because she's got to pose in a way that looks beautiful and that blends in with the image.
Yeah.
And it took, if I remember right, about 2 hours to body paint her.
Wow.
And it was getting a little bit chilly, and body paint is wet paint on
warm
skin, with a little bit of wind. After that, at the end of that day, she was shivering. She was really cold. I've actually got a little interview with her.
Well, a little bit of patience, but like I said before, it's all worth it in the end. It's just having to hold it in the one place and freeze. But yeah, it's definitely been worth the experience. I've really enjoyed myself.
That's awesome, man. Very inspiring. And that's taken 2 sort of genres of photography, you know, portrait and landscape, mixing it together and creating what I would say is a piece of art, mate.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks,
good job, man. Thanks for the share. That's
awesome.
Epic, brother.
So, inspire us with one of yours, Johnny.
Okay, here we go. So, you can see here, guys, I've got an image here from, I think it's from Zenith Beach again, and I think that is Point Stevens, that point there. So you've got Tomaree on this side, Point Stevens to the south, and this image is a different take on long exposure. Basically, you know, about a 1/3, 1/6 of a second. I like to shoot these images at. There's no filter in here. You can see I've shot it. Actually, this is sunrise. So the scene is actually cross-lit. The sun is over to the left of this image. And you can see, even by the sky, you can see it goes from warm to cool. So from left to right, warm to cool. So you've got the sun rising over here. It's cross-lit the scene. You can see that warm tones all across the mountain there. And basically, the idea of using this sort of shutter speed rather than using your filter is you just want to get a little bit of foreground movement in the foam or the waves or whatever you're shooting. So yeah, it's just another take on long exposure photography, but it's only shooting around 1/3 to 1/6 of a second. So yeah, I'm a really big fan of this type of movement in my images. Just a slight bit of blur in the foreground. I think it just adds interest, and yeah, epic, mate.
I love that, and I love the 1/3 to a 1/6 of a second as the perfect shutter speed for a wave, especially where it's blurred right at the bottom, and obviously the edge of your lens where you got the most distortion too, you know, where the waves come in, and you've got to time that perfectly.
I know, you do. And why I say a 1/6 to 1/3 is it just depends on how fast the water's moving. You know, it all depends. And I'll just quickly show you this other image, and we'll talk about it in a bit more length a bit later, but you can see in this one, Brent, the shutter's actually still about 1/3 to 1/6, but because the water is moving so much faster, you know, you can see the blurs a lot more. So there it is, guys, Zenith Beach. A different take on long exposure photography, around 1/3 to 1/6 of a second, and that's what I like to do with my longer exposures.
Awesome.
Awesome, thanks, man.
Good.
Create.
All right, buddy. Tell me how you created this image and what tools you used in the field. I really want to know. It's epic.
No worries. Okay, so that image is a similar scene to Johnny's one. It's at Zenith Beach also, just down the beach a little bit. So what I wanted to create with this scene was an artistic look at this landscape. So I wanted to have cloud movement and I wanted to have water movement. And I wanted to have those rocks against the water because those rocks are really dark and black. So how did I create this? Well, I used my tripod.
I've nicknamed your tripod Killer because a number of times I picked it up, it's nearly taken my finger off, man. This thing is epic, dude.
Yeah.
Man, it's had that many repairs done to it.
Yeah, it's an old tripod, and the legs don't come out too well. And I've got a nice quick release head on here, so I can go portrait style or landscape style really easily. So you obviously need a really sturdy tripod. I'll put that down there.
That's a good tip, guys. It's not always about the latest and greatest gear.
Yeah.
I have some equipment that's older too, and it still does the job and still gets the job done when I need it. And you don't always need the best stuff, mate.
And my tripod, half the time it's in the water, so I don't want to put something new in the water.
That's it. Perfect.
And then obviously you need a good camera with a wide angle lens. I'm using a 17 to 40 millimeter f4 Canon lens, and then you need your filters on the front. So what I do is I get there to the scene, I find the composition that I want, and I make sure everything looks good. I take out the 10-stop neutral density filter, and then I look through here because I can then...
So that's a polarizer on the front there, mate.
Polarizing, circular polarizing filter. So I'll get it to a point where I can get the sky nice and dark.
Yeah.
So as you can see in the image, the right-hand side, the sky against the clouds there's a lot of contrast. The sky is really blue and the clouds are really white. So I get it to where it's taking out the most glare from the sky and the water, and then I set it up and I pre-focus. I make sure it's all in focus. I might zoom in, to make sure it's all in focus. Then I click it to manual focus. Yep. And I sometimes would put in a graduated neutral density filter to darken the sky if the water's really bright. If there's a lot of white in the water.
Yeah. So you're going to stack 3 filters there. So it would be. So how would you have that? You have your polarizer, and then your grad.
Yes, and then the 10-stop.
Then the 10-stop.
So the reason I put the 10-stop in the back is the leaf filter has got this little what do you call it, Johnny?
Yeah, it's a little bit of foam there, and what that does is help seal it against the filter holder there, and that stops from any light bleed from the side, basically. Yeah.
So you don't want light reflecting back in off the filter back into your sensor. Yep. So I put that right at the back, and then I'll put the graduated ND filter on the front. So I'll use one of these. This is my 2-stop.
Pretty.
ND. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'll put it in the back of my shirt there. So obviously I'll put it with the darker bit at the top.
Yep, to pull that sky back a bit. Yeah, perfect.
And take out the highlights in the sky.
Yep.
So I'll do that. So first thing, I take the 10-stop out, make sure everything's in focus and everything's good and the sky's dark.
Yep.
Great. Then I put the 10-stop in. Then you can't see a thing. And then I'll expose for 30 seconds initially, just because that's the longest that this camera can actually go. So I'll put it to...
Another good tip there, guys, before you get exposure to, through the back here, through the viewfinder, if some of them actually you can close, and they've got a little shutter. Yeah. Like my D800's got a little shutter. Yeah. So that's another good tip too. If it does have the little shutter, close that. And close that, 'cause stops a bit of light bleed from the
And I've seen Verena often, when she's photographing, she just puts her hand over. Puts her hand over, not actually touching the camera, because you don't want to move the camera.
That's right.
You just put your hand over it so that no direct sun goes into the eyepiece back into your system, so you get any light bleed.
Yeah, light bleed.
So then I'll shoot it at 100 ISO, or maybe the low ISO, so the lowest ISO you can go.
Yeah, so you got, I think my D800's got actually about 3 levels under 100, 2 or 3. So yours goes down, obviously it's 50. About 50, so it halves the 100 again,
And then I'll shoot at 30 seconds, and I'll probably shoot like a mid f8 to f16 or something like that. And then I'll have a look at the image. If it's blown out and it's too bright, I'll just crank up the aperture a little bit. I'll go to f20 or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, but honestly, by the time you've stacked all those filters, bright daylight, you probably, f16, you'd probably almost
sometimes Oh, sometimes it's still
yeah,
in
there's
Australia.
Reflection on the
reflection,
water. Yeah,
it can get really bright here in Australia. So sometimes I want to go for like a 2-minute exposure to try and get those cloud movements.
Yeah.
So then what I'll do is I'll go 2 minutes f20 at a low ISO, 50 ISO, and then it'll be properly exposed and great.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
So that's how I do it, guys.
Awesome.
And yep.
One thing I've got to say I really like about this image is the cloud formation in the water. If you have a look at the image, guys, and we'll flick back to that now, the direction, there's two sort of leading lines that lead you directly at the mountain. So the movement in the clouds has actually created a leading line in the sky. I can see it points you down from the top left down to the center of the screen there, and the rocks too, mate. They draw you in along the beach. So I really love that composition, and you can see by that movement in the cloud has created another leading line. It's awesome, really great, mate. I love that image. Excellent. Thanks for sharing how you create it.
Yeah, no worries. Do you want to actually compare that against the one that you
created?
The exact same spot.
Yeah, so there you go. We're back at mine, and I'm actually, if you see Brent's, I'm probably halfway along that little beach you can see there. That's where mine was taken, and still the same mountain in the background. But you can see, guys, two different photographers, obviously 2 different days, 2 different techniques. Same location have created 2 different pieces of art, and that's what's so great about this photography thing, mate. Is you can create your own style and personalize the images you create. Just on based on what you like to how you interpret the scene. Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. How you interpret the scene. Give me a coffee.
Your inner artist determines how you actually photograph the scene and which filters you use and which angle you take and how long a shutter speed you use.
Well, that's it. I mean, they're both long exposure shots, but I've gone and chosen a shorter long exposure, a third to a sixth of a second based on the water movement, and it's given me a total different image. Totally different image. Still a piece of art. It's still my own interpretation of the location, but that's what's so I love it, man. No, I'm speechless. It just gets me inspired looking at 2 different artists, same creation, same location but different creations.
Definitely. So Johnny, tell us how you created that other one. One with the waves going out.
Yeah, so this is another way. So the one you saw before at Zenith Beach was actually the bits of foam coming in towards me. But this is a different, same shutter speed, this one here. But this is a location under the inner lighthouse, and you can see I've put that foreground element right in the middle center, and you can get away with the middle center when you're shooting in portrait. That foreground element, you can put it right in the center and have that be I was going to say the rock. Have it be the rock in your foreground, and it is actually a rock in the foreground. But you can see different water movement, guys. So what's happened here is the swell's been really a lot bigger than the Zenith Beach, and it's come surging in. It's come right up, halfway up to my knees, and it's come surging back out, and I've caught the surge back out, and that's why you get that. That you can see that water's pushed up against that foreground rock, and it's pulling you into the scene. Those white lines of the surge of the water is pulling you into the scene, and actually goes. This is my favorite motion in water, is the suck out. I love it. I call it the suck out. I don't know what it's meant to be, but I call it the suck out. So that's basically how that one was created. Same shutter speed, different water movement. And what I recommend you do with these images, and this is what I do every time I get there, and depending on how the light in the sky is, okay, I find my composition and I wait till that perfect light in the sky happens, and I'll be exposed for that sky. So I've got my sky shot. That's the one I'm going to blend in later on. The sky is normally always brighter in your scene depending on where you're shooting. So I've got that exposure for the sky. Then I'll change my settings so that I can get a decent exposure for the foreground at around 1/6 or 1/3. And then I'll just keep shooting that 1/6, 1/3 for the foreground until I get that perfect movement. There may be 10 or 12 frames that I've shot before I got that movement there that I really, really like. So, I mean, that's a tip, guys. Expose for the sky, and then wait till you get that perfect movement. Keep taking shots and reviewing your shots till you find you've got that perfect movement in the foreground, and blend the two in post in Photoshop, and then that's your final image. That's it.
So you're saying you actually take 2 images?
Yeah, always. Yeah. I mean, it depends. Like the same old thing. I mean, Jay loves this. When you're shooting away from the sun, often you can get it in one shot because the dynamic range of the image is a lot smaller. The sky and the foreground are often a lot more balanced. You can get that in one exposure, but actually, which is probably what I did here, because I got a feeling this was on sunset, so the sun was behind me. Yeah. So I probably got this in one image, but most of the time, if you're shooting, you know, directly into the sun, you always have to expose for that sky and then expose for the foreground and blend in post. So
or use a graduated
that's right.
ND filter.
Yeah, use a filter.
Because I'm lazy, I don't want to blend too images.
I know, and I mean, I've got my 10-stop and my polarizer. I haven't dabbled in the grads in that yet, but yeah, it's all good. So that's how it's created, guys, and I love this type of water movement, and it adds such a dynamic, and it changes all the time. That's the thing, Brent. Like every time you take another shot, you look at it and go, oh, look at that one. Oh, look at that one. So I'll forget to look at the light of the sky, and I've taken 25 frames of the foreground of the water movement because it's so exciting. You just go, oh. And then a big one, you move your tripod and turn around, a big wave comes in, you miss it, you know, like it's like, oh. But anyway, so that's it, guys. 2 different types of long exposure images by 2 different artists. And yeah, get out there and give it a go. And we'd love to see your images too, wouldn't we, mate?
Awesome. Yeah. And final tip, guys, you can get one of these. It's a variable ND filter. Yeah. So basically it's 2 polarizing filters stacked on top of each other. So you just turn them like this and it gets darker or lighter. And you can go, I think this one goes all the way to 10 stops.
Wow.
If I remember right. The only problem is as you're getting really close to the end, what happens to your image, you start getting these lines that go like this.
It's like hatching.
It's weird.
The 2 different filters.
So
you do need to be careful.
I'd keep it, you know, from wide open, or with no polarizing effect, all the way to about 80% of as far as it goes before you start getting those weird things in it. But that is a cheaper way to do long exposure if you don't have the money for a 10-stop ND filter.
You can also just get a straight 10-stop circular filter as well, and that's not a bad way to go either when you're starting out. Grab one of those. Often you will get a color cast from those as well, the cheaper ones, but man, you can pull that out in post pretty easily. It's not a problem. So awesome. Thanks. Great, man. Good. Awesome. All right, guys, that's it for this show. It's been another epic show, buddy, and I love it, long exposure photography. It's just awesome. I love it. I love that water movement, and you can not only, we've only showed a lot of water movement here, but you can get some real interesting effect, even from trees and grasses and things like that. I love to see that movement in the foreground or whatever in the clouds, like, whew. You know what I really, really love is when the clouds are coming at you or away from you, they sort of streak in and out of the sand, and it really just pulls you down. I didn't have an example to show today, but yeah, I love that as well, man.
Me too.
And that model shoot that you did, how unique is that? How often do you see that? That's awesome, man.
And you know, just because I came up with the concept and I changed it, that's probably why I won that award. So, I mean, there's a tip. Just do something different to what everyone else is doing. Yeah. And look, guys, I'm a long exposure freak. For a couple of years, I wouldn't even shoot a landscape without a 10-stop neutral density filter on it, because to me it was too easy. Yeah. I wanted some, you know, I wanted to create art. I wanted to create something different and difficult. So that's probably why I blended a model into the scene, because you know, after shooting 10-stop with my 10-stop neutral density filter and long exposure photography, I thought, how can I make this even more difficult? Yeah.
Well, that's how you do it, man.
Yeah,
so you put another 3 people and a model and
body paint.
Body paint. Okay. Always making life harder.
Why not? Yeah.
But anyway, epic image, mate. I really enjoyed it. And guys.
And I love your images too, Johnny. Like with the wave movement. What do you call it? The suck out.
I call it the suck out.
Okay. Yeah. So you should trademark.
Yeah, I will. I'll get a shirt, man. Photograph the suck out. Anyway, it's all good.
Awesome, guys. So yeah, please leave comments below on what you think of this long exposure. If you've got any questions, leave them below this video.
Yeah, and don't forget to give us a rating and leave us some comments in iTunes if you're loving what we do. That helps us a lot. And guys, I really want to see your long exposure images. If you haven't tried it before, grab yourself one of those cheap, 10-stop filters and go out there and give it a go, because it's awesome fun. It's one of those things, with photography, and I've spoken about this before, Brent, with my macro photography. It's like you just try something a little bit different and all of a sudden you're hooked. You love it. It just adds another tool to your arsenal and for your photography. Arsenal, is that the right word? Yeah. Right. Adds another tool to your photography bag that you can use. And awesome, guys. Thanks.
And it changed everything for Michael Hall. If you have a look at the SIC show we did with Michael Hall, the 10-stop neutral density filter, borrowing it from a friend, totally changed his whole photography and his whole mission, or his whole what's it? Goals. When it comes to landscape photography.
Yeah, epic, guys. All right, thanks for watching. It's been another epic show, buddy, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, catch you next week. Cheers.
Have a great week. Bye.
To find out more, go to shareinspirecreate.com.